Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Still covering all of MVP's recent signings to their growing stable of Valkyries. Oshae Jones, reigning IBF junior middleweight champion, sporting a professional record of 9-0 with 3 KOs, has been added to the roster. Another import from what was the OTX stable. They picked up Tiara Brown. They picked up Oshae Jones, both of which used to box under OTX.
Now they box under MVP, and they are both better off for it. Oshae Jones is best described as a boxer-puncher with some speed.
Some power. Last in action in July of last year, opposite the ring, Elia Carranza, who she won a split decision against over 10 rounds. It turned out to be the only fight that she had. Could that be a byproduct of OTX going under? Perhaps.
OTX, a small regional promotional outfit here in the United States that was the home for a lot of fighters and did a good job of keeping them active, keeping them busy. Oshae boxed under the banner a good number of times.
Keeping active in 2024, where she boxed 3 times that year, but only once the last one.
Currently, IBF champion in the junior middleweight division.
One of only 2 champions at that weight right now, which makes it a bit tricky promoting her, because while she's talented, coming from a good amateur background, and she's unbeaten, young, currently a world champion, there's not a lot for her to do at junior middleweight. The only champion at the weight is her old buddy, Michaela Mayer, who has since moved back down to the welterweight division.
Michaela, up until recently, held 3 alphabet titles at that weight. She was forced to drop the WBO
by the WBO, who stipulate they don't allow any of their champions to hold alphabet titles at more than one weight. She decided to keep her WBO at 147, but she still holds 2 titles at 154. The WBA and the WBC, her dropping back down in weight, she's not available for a fight with Oshae. What MVP can do is have Oshae box for that newly vacated WBO title against the next highest ranked contender, but that's not going to get her much press.
Much exposure, not by itself. We see that with Clarissa Shields. How many vacant titles has she picked up? It doesn't result in more ticket sales.
My suggestion to MVP, now that they are promoting this fighter, is that perhaps she should move up to the middleweight division and challenge Australia's own Kay Scott for her 2 alphabet titles. Then if she wins, put her in the ring with Desley Robinson,
who is also signed to MVP.
Oshae Jones is a fantastic signing and a great young fighter with good, raw materials, but she still needs to be built. And in order to do that, she needs the fights. She needs the opponents. Right now, there's more to offer at 160 than there is at 154. And moving up to 160 for a Kay Scott fight or a Desley Robinson fight wouldn't jeopardize her status as a champion at 154. She can do both.
The IBF doesn't have that same rule that the WBO does. They'll let a fighter hold a title at more than one weight. I suggest they move her up for Kay Scott. If she wins, do an undisputed title fight with Desley Robinson.
Build her up. Tam Tebow, another one of MVP's Valkyries, recently made the decision to go back to the amateurs and try and qualify for the next Olympics. Irrespective of what happens with that, when she returns to the paid ranks,
by the time she does, Oshae Jones may have the run of the place, at which point you can start building up a fight between America's best versus Canada's best at 160.
As Tam Tebow is really something, and I've often talked about that. It seems to me that a fight between Tam and Oshae can be built into the biggest and best fight in the women's middleweight division, but you have to start on that now. 154 by itself doesn't have enough to offer Oshae. 160 might be the way to go.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, Swerve TV, an LA-based free ad-supported streaming television fast provider, today announced a multi-year partnership with Goldenboy Promotions, the world-renowned boxing promotional company, to deliver a robust slate of premium boxing content to audiences nationwide. The agreement provides Swerve TV with access to Goldenboy's unparalleled library of classic fights featuring iconic bouts, showcasing some of the sport's most celebrated fighters, including Oscar de la Hoya, Floyd Mayweather, Canelo Alvarez, Manny Pacquiao, Bernard Hopkins, and many more. The partnership will also include programming featuring Goldenboy's current roster of standout stars, including Ryan Garcia and Virgil Ortiz.
Not if Rick Merrigan has anything to say about it, and we'll get to that.
So this is widely being interpreted as Goldenboy Promotions being jettisoned from the DAZN platform because we know that they were between broadcasters. DAZN had yet to renew with Goldenboy. Prevalent industry rumors suggested that whether or not DAZN would renew with Goldenboy was contingent upon Goldenboy delivering the Boots versus Ortiz fight, which we all know they did not.
Now, which one of the guys on the Goldenboy side you want to blame for this? Virgil, his manager Rick Merrigan, or Oscar De La Hoya himself? I will leave such judgments up to you. But all the problems associated with the fight and putting it together were from the Goldenboy Promotions side of things. I often highlighted this while also citing that Goldenboy Promotions' content offering to the DAZN platform was not so much that getting their deal renewed was a guarantee. When you consider that Goldenboy's flagship fighter, Ryan Garcia,
he hates it over there. He wants to leave, and up until he does, well, he hasn't been that active anyway. He only boxed once last year and once the year before that. He can't carry the banner on his back the way that Canelo did.
Not fighting once a year for the last 2 years and threatening to leave the promotion whenever the mood strikes him.
And this is the biggest name under the Goldenboy Promotions roster. There are other fighters like Zurdo Ramirez, who's an accomplished fighter, but not a big draw.
Undisputed flyweight champion Gabby Fundora, who's a personal favorite of mine, but the same applies. As good as she is, she's not a big draw. Not yet. Some other serviceable fighters like Alexis Rocha and Oscar Duarte, William Zepeda.
Good fighters, solid fighters, many of them fun to watch, but none of them a big marquee attraction. So when you start to think about what Goldenboy Promotions' content offering has been for years now,
if you're DAZN, there's not much incentive in there to keep spending money on that content to give them a new deal. Least of all, when you pressured them to make a fight between two in-house fighters, two guys,
two DAZN fighters.
Even if they're with different promoters, they box on the same platform, so making the fight should be relatively simple, and it wasn't. Goldenboy failed to deliver.
Outwardly, it just seemed like there wasn't much incentive for DAZN to renew with them. Give them a new deal.
And on that predication, people are interpreting this multi-year deal with Swerve as DAZN giving them the boot. I don't want to speak too soon. It could very well be that DAZN has terminated their partnership with Goldenboy, but it could also be that they've cut the budget. Maybe they work out a new deal where they don't kick out as much money to them, and Goldenboy is looking to make up the difference by inking new partnerships with new platforms, different ones, to show their smaller cards and capitalize off their existing catalog of classic fights. It could be that way. What we know with an absolute certitude is veteran manager Rick Merrigan.
He said, "No way does Virgil box on this platform."
In his own words, Jack Johnson will fight on Netflix before Virgil Ortiz ever fights on Swerve. We know that Virgil is in the process of trying to achieve his own free agency via a lawsuit against Goldenboy Promotions that suggests, upon their DAZN deal ending,
he is free to go. His contract with them was contingent upon them having a platform for him to fight on. The moment the DAZN deal ended, his contract with them ended.
That's what the lawsuit says, and we know it holds some water, because if the DAZN deal hadn't ended, why did Goldenboy just ink a new deal with a new broadcaster?
Which is no substitute for DAZN, by the way.
Though because Goldenboy has found a new home for their fights, does this throw the monkey wrench in Virgil Ortiz's lawsuit against them? And I'm not sure, but I don't think so. Because if he filed suit in between the time your DAZN deal ended and your Swerve deal started, you were without a broadcaster.
Albeit for a brief period.
And that brief period may be enough to void his existing contract with you. When it rains, it pours. That's not Oscar's only problem. According to Nightingale Associates, Oscar de la Hoya has defaulted on downtown LA office loan, faces foreclosure. Boxer owes $23 million in debt connected to financial district mid-rise. The 12-story, roughly 150,000 square foot property at 626 Wilshire Boulevard in LA, California, was only 60% occupied, according to servicer commentary, as of last summer. Downtown offices, which have become the poster child for post-pandemic distress, had a 34.4 vacancy rate as of the fourth quarter last year, per a CBRE report. So let's recap. Your broadcast deal just ended, and as a result of that, you may lose one of your flagship fighters, while the other...
He hates you.
You've subsequently had to downgrade to a smaller streaming platform that is no substitute for DAZN, and you've defaulted on an office loan for space that is now facing foreclosure, all while you're still uploading videos to social media to talk about everybody else's problems. Oscar, you've got enough of your own.
You're in the whole $23 million.
Virgil Ortiz may yet achieve his free agency, at which point he can migrate to Matchroom, he can migrate to Canelo's promotional outfit, or he can do what everybody else is doing and go to Zuffa.
Won't that put distance between him and the Boots fight?
Stuff that people have been doing on his side of things has put enough distance between him and the Boots fight that I don't really think that's a priority.
And the titles?
Zuffa Boxing signing the likes of Jai Opataya and trying to sign Usyk, trying to sign Bam, suggests they have no problem dealing with the sanctioning bodies. Also, anecdotally, Virgil Ortiz wasn't all that pressed to box for an alphabet title to begin with. If he were, he would have fought for one by now.
Robert Garcia trains him, and Robert Garcia is funneling a good number of his fighters over to Zuffa, so it's entirely possible if Virgil achieves free agency, he might pop up over there.
While Goldenboy Promotions finds themselves in a similar predicament to the PBC, to Top Rank. As one major broadcast deal ends, another, smaller one begins. How did Goldenboy Promotions end up in this predicament? Veteran boxing scribe Stephen
Kimothy.
He's got some insights. As soon as networks started giving dates and exclusive deals to promoters, that was the point of no return for boxing. At that stage, it wasn't a true meritocracy in terms of which fights would be approved by the networks for their audiences. It's always had issues, but as long as you had some quality control with networks like HBO and Showtime, this business could function pretty well. But if dates and money are guaranteed, all managers and promoters will do is mitigate risks most of the time.
Great minds think alike, because I've said that myself here on the channel a number of times. They went from trying to shell out the best fights for the best money to just filling slots.
Steve continued, not once will they think about the fans, and that's the inconvenient truth.
Because when you have a multi-year deal, you really don't have to. You're guaranteed a certain budget annually, every year, a certain number of fight dates, so you're not making fights with a sense of urgency that you need it to be successful.
You want it to be because you tell yourself, I've got X amount of fight dates anyway, I'm going to get X amount of money from the broadcaster.
I'm going to protect my assets, and I'm going to keep them in filler fights, continue to build them up, pad their record.
The perks of having a long-term deal with a major broadcaster, but all good things come to an end. The consequence of not delivering metrics to your broadcast partner who's not giving you money for no reason, they're expecting you to deliver metrics to their platform with your content, and when you don't,
you get the boot.
I completely understand Steve's perspective that the byproduct of these exclusivity deals between broadcasters and promoters led to a lot of laxed matchmaking that didn't grow the sport,
didn't stimulate the audience,
and thus didn't deliver metrics to the broadcaster, to the point the broadcaster's saying, why are we spending money on this? We're not getting anything out of it.
Though it wasn't always this way.
What sparked this, and this is going to sound familiar, is when Al Heyman gets all that Waddle and Reed money in 2014, which he used to funnel 150, 200 fighters from Goldenboy Promotions over to what became his PBC.
This is what led to exclusivity deals.
In a manner of speaking, because once he got that 150, 200 fighters, he overpaid that 150, 200 fighters, in effect creating market instability and driving the cost of everything up.
Why did he overpay them?
To keep the talent on his side of the street, to prevent those fighters from going anywhere else. Why would they? To make fights with anyone else's promoter when they're making so much staying right there. And not only that, The fighters that weren't with him are looking on that side of the street, hearing about what those fighters are making for what are layup fights and tune-ups.
They're gonna want a piece of that too.
So in order to prevent their talent from crossing over to Al's side of the street, everybody else starts overpaying their fighters, further driving the cost of everything up.
Big contract minimums and exclusivity deals with networks to ensure the talent doesn't float away.
All of which led to a fragmented, divided sport where fights that need to happen don't happen because these fighters fight over here and those fighters fight over there. Nobody wants to risk anything. The audience isn't interested anymore. Watching boxing is too difficult and too expensive. A uniquely American problem within the boxing space, because while all of this is going on here, the Asian boxing scene was growing. So was the British one.
But in America, what was supposed to be the mecca of boxing, boxing became a niche sport, falling into the background of the sporting consciousness in the United States. And this is where we are now, where PBC doesn't have a major broadcaster, neither does Top Rank, and apparently neither does Goldenboy.
It all starts with the exclusivity deals between broadcasters and promoters, but there's a reason you started seeing those exclusivity deals, and what those deals led to was a sort of relaxed form of matchmaking that didn't satisfy what the audience wants. In competing with each other, the promoters themselves lost sight of what's most important: the paying public.
I think Steve Kim, more than any other boxing scribe, does a good job of highlighting this on a regular basis, that the managers, they don't care what the fans want. The fighters don't either, and the promoters,
in some instances, are just as guilty, because you're not giving the fans what they want, and you're not giving the broadcaster what they ask for. On the heels of this news that Goldenboy Promotions has just inked a multi-year deal with an obscure streaming platform that is no substitute for DAZN, this could herald the end of Goldenboy Promotions, what has been a fixture in the sport for at least 2 decades.
empires fall.
This would just be another name lost in the annals of time in the history of boxing, like Rock Newman or Dan Goosen, Don King.
Names that really don't get brought up in conversation that much anymore. Why would they? Oscars could be the next.
I don't know with an absolute certitude that DAZN is completely done with Goldenboy Promotions, but at the same time, they didn't ink this deal with Swerve for no reason.